Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our presentation. Today, we will be talking about achieving effective resource management and reporting with Microsoft Project Online. All right, so for introductions, let me just give you a brief introduction of who we are. This is not our team in its entirety, of course, but I just wanted to give you an overview of our Managing Director, Daniel Bell. He founded our company, and he's been working with project management industry, focusing on Project Server since the very beginning, Project Central back in 2000. So he's been doing this for more than 15 years. You can see that we both have quite a few certifications here. I am the Director of Project Delivery. Again, if you missed my name at the very beginning, my name is Laura Crawford. I also have quite a few certifications here. We live, eat, and breathe in Project Server, if you will. We actually drink from the well. So since I started learning about Project Server and Microsoft Project, I have been filling out a timesheet every week. I actually create project plans in Project Professional, update them on a regular basis. I run some reports in Project Server as well. So we're very familiar with the tool. Not only am I a Microsoft certified trainer, but because I actually use this tool on a regular basis, I'm able then to provide some real-world consulting tips for you. So first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Integent, what our services are and what we're about. And also, then we'll jump into the presentation. We'll talk about enterprise resources, resource types. We'll talk about units, maximum units, assignment units, and peak units, and what those differences are. From there, we're going to talk about over-allocation, how to identify that in your project plans, and your leveling options that you can use in Project Online and in Microsoft Project. And then we'll talk about how you can adjust the resource allocation directly in your project plan, where you can go to see that. And at the very end, we're going to end with a Q&A session. Now, I do have a chat window open in which some of you can type in questions as we go along, but I will let you know that when I am in this WebEx session and I am in this presentation mode, I don't always see all those questions being brought through on that chat box. So I will stop sharing towards the very end so that I can see the questions, and I'll make sure that I go through all of those. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk just a little bit about Integent. We are a certified gold partner in both project and portfolio management and cloud platform, excuse me. All right, so in order to maintain those certifications, I am not the only one that has sat for these exams. All of us need to be certified in the tool that we are consulting on in order to maintain those certifications. And we also have to have customer feedback. Our customers have to vouch for our capabilities or our abilities there so that we maintain those competencies. So we're very proud of those. This just gives you an idea of what we do. We do primarily focus on Project Server and Microsoft Project, but we have recently expanded that to include Dynamics CRM and also Azure hosting opportunities. With Project Online, there are some you have OData reports, which use Excel services. If you wanted to, for instance, use SSRS reports, we'd be happy to host a server for you in which we can then do some custom development for your business intelligence and develop some additional reports. We also have a lot of experience in integrating Project Online or Project Server with additional tools, so feel free to reach out to us with any questions regarding that as well. All right, so initially I'm going to be showing you some slides. Once I get past the first few slides, we're going to jump right into the tool so that we're able to, you'll be able to see everything that I'm demonstrating. Instead of just reading to you, you'll actually be able to see it in action. All right, but what we're going to talk about first are enterprise resources. All right, so enterprise resources is probably one of the main reasons why you have selected Project Online or you're thinking about selecting Project Online. And that is because being able to see your resources across every project that they're working on in your organization, and not just those projects that you are currently managing, is a huge benefit to Project Online and also Project Server on-premise. Both of those, of course, use the Enterprise Resource Pool. The Enterprise Resource Pool is created by administrators, or maybe even possibly a resource manager. Typically, it's an administrator that does it. They enter resources into the Enterprise Resource Pool. They could be synced with Active Directory if you needed to. Otherwise, you can manually add them to the Enterprise Resource Pool if you're not using Active Directory, all right? But the idea is once these resources are entered into the Enterprise Resource Pool, they are then available to the project managers to staff their project teams. So they can add them to the project plan, and then they can assign those resources to work on specific tasks within the project, all right? The Enterprise Resource Pool will consist of 3 different types of resources: work, material, and cost. I should say it can consist of those. Your organization may not be using all of those different types of resources. Maybe you're just using work resources, but you do have the ability of using work, material, and cost resources. They do have to be entered into the resource pool so that the project managers can use those to assign to tasks in their project. Starting with work. Work resources are referring to the people and equipment that are needed to perform the task. Okay, so when we talk about the people or the manpower, that can consist of generic resources, which of course are just a placeholder, a skill set that is used to identify a resource need within a project plan. You may not know at that time which named resource you're going to use, but you know you need a developer, a project manager, and an analyst on your project plan. So it gives you the ability to forecast your resource needs for your upcoming project until you're ready to switch those out with your named resources. The named resources are exactly that. They are the actual person that you will be assigning the task to, a task in your project plan. Teams, I'll get to this in just a few moments, but the idea is that instead of selecting an individual resource to work on a task, you are assigning it to a team. An example of that might be maybe you have a support ticketing system where if something breaks or you need some support assistance, it goes to an IT help desk, and then the next person on call would pick up that particular task and help you with it. But we'll talk a little bit about how to set that up in just a moment. Okay, so those are your work resources. Again, it's the people and equipment that are needed to perform the task. Your material resources are consumable resources. So those are the resources that will need to be replaced throughout the duration of your project. So in other words, an example of that would be, let's say we're in an actual classroom right now for this webinar, and I'm passing out training materials or maybe a manual. At the end of the training session, I'm not going to go around and collect the manuals. Those are yours to keep. Typically, you bring them home. They're a reference for you. That will be an example of a material resource, a resource that is being consumed that I would need to replace. All right. Cost resources, if you can think in terms of invoices, these are resources that maybe if I was traveling to your organization or your place of business to deliver a training session for your folks, maybe my travel or my lodging expenses, that would be an example of a cost resource. The cost resource could be created in your system, such as travel expenses, lodging expenses, could be the name of the resource, but the cost information is not entered when the resource is actually created in the Enterprise Resource Pool. It's entered by the project manager at a later time. When they finally eventually receive that invoice for their travel expenses, then they can go in and update that information. All right, and we're going to get into these throughout the demo demonstration as well. But when we talk about enterprise resources, I want you to understand that there is a difference between the enterprise and the local resources. So those of you that may have been using Project Standard or maybe even Project Professional, but you're not connected to a server, you probably have been very used to just typing in named resources on a resource sheet and then using those resources to assign them to tasks. Enterprise resources are very different from local resources in that, again, they are created by your administrators and added to the enterprise resource pool so that when you add that resource to your project team and then go ahead and publish your project, that information is pushed out to the resource. So the resource would know that they've been assigned to a task in your project plan. That task would actually show up on a task page or a timesheet, depending upon what type of tracking method you're using. It would also provide the ability for other project managers or resource managers to go to Resource Center, which I'm going to show you in just a little bit, and visualize and see how that resource is being utilized across multiple projects. So if it's an enterprise resource and the project has been published, you would be able to see how their availability is being decremented based on all the projects that they're being assigned to directly right in Resource Center. A local resource, however, that visibility will not be in Project Center. You would not be able to see how that resource is being utilized on the project. It's actually hidden from everybody else. You would be the only one that would know that this local resource is assigned to your project team and that they are currently working on tasks in your project. So be careful when using these. You may be wondering, well, why would I even want to use them if I'm using Project Online? An example of why you might want to create a local resource, and anyone can create a local resource. All you do is type in the name on the resource sheet view in Project Pro, and there you're creating a local resource. All right, be careful in that you want to make sure that you're not accidentally doing that. If the name is similar to an enterprise resource, a project might not realize that it is one and the same person. So William Smith and Bill Smith can be recognized as two completely different people. So you'd have to be careful. But why you would want to create a local resource, if you have resources that are not going to be filling out a timesheet or a task page, and you have what's called restrict updates on. That's just a configuration setting that your administrators may have turned on. If that's on, project managers can only update project task progress through either a timesheet or a task page by accepting updates and publishing those to the project plan. Local resources may be individuals that don't have a license. They're not allowed to log into your system, so they're never actually going to fill out a timesheet. Well, if you create a local resource and assign it to a task in your project plan, you actually can, even if the restrict updates are on, you can actually update task progress directly in your project. So either updating % complete for that task that they're working on, or going to maybe a usage view and putting the actual hours that the resource is has spent on those particular tasks. So that would be an example of why you would want to use them. However, again, local resources don't receive task updates or alerts. They don't receive that task on a timesheet. Project Online and Project Server do not recognize them as enterprise resources, so they're only visible in your project plan. Okay, so let's circle back to the three groups of work resources that I mentioned briefly, all right? So when we were looking at that first slide, we were talking about work resources. And again, those include your named resources, which is an actual person that has been added to your enterprise resource pool. Generic resources, again, are the skill-based placeholder that you're using. Maybe you're not sure who the named person is just yet, or maybe you haven't hired that person yet, and your project is going to be kicked off in 3 weeks, and you know that you're going to use this particular skill set. You can use the generic. Generic resources are also typically used in templates, and then switched for the named resource. Team resources, as I said, is a little bit different, and it does require additional setup. All right, so teams, again, instead of assigning a task to an individual person, you're assigning it to a team. So I use the example of the IT support desk or maybe a ticketing system. That's an example of typically when you use team resources as opposed to the named resource. Let me just explain what's needed in order to set that up, though. Your administrator is going to have to create a lookup table that contains the names of the teams. So maybe one is IT support help, or maybe you have more than one team. All right, so those names need to be created or added to a value list in a lookup table. The lookup table needs to be hooked up to the team name, which is a default enterprise field that is already existing from Microsoft. It just doesn't have any values in it, so you need to add the values. After you've done that, you need to actually create a generic resource to represent the team name so that, again, if the project manager wants to assign this task to a team as opposed to an individual person, the generic needs to be created and added to the enterprise resource pool so that the project manager can select the team. So an example might be IT support team. That would be an example of a team name that you could add as a generic. All right, so once you've done all that, you actually also have to associate the resource that is on the team. So in the enterprise resource pool, the administrator would be completing a team name custom field that is there in the enterprise resource window for that particular resource, and then they would associate that resource to the team. All right, the drawback to using teams is that since it is a team, if you are on that team, when you open up a timesheet or a task page, you don't automatically see team assignments loaded to a task page or a timesheet. They would not be there. So you do have to wrap some additional training around that to let your resources know that if they're a part of a team, they're going to have to go and add the team task to their timesheet or their task page as they update that task progress. All right, so a little bit more work involved in using teams, but that's the idea and the concept behind it. Let's talk for a moment about units. I'm just going to show you a couple more slides on units, and then we're going to go ahead and open Project Pro so I can also show you this and actually demonstrate it for you. I think it'll make a little bit more sense in that perspective. There are three types of units. One is maximum units, assignment units, and then peak units. And the difference between these is maximum units are what is entered into the enterprise resource pool. So when the administrator creates a brand new resource or adds somebody to your enterprise resource pool, there is a field for maximum units. If they set this at 100%, that means that when you put this person on your project team and assign them to tasks, project makes the assumption that this person is 100% dedicated to performing the task on your project plan. So they're available 8 hours a day to complete the task that you assign them to. Assignment units is different. This shows the percentage or number that represents the resources allocation to a task. So when you assign a resource to a task in your project, you have the ability of saying maybe they're not 100% dedicated, they're 50% dedicated to my task because they're working on other things. So that's what assignment units is showing. And it also will show what you originally assigned that person to in your project plan. So if you originally assigned them at 50% to a task, you'll see it stays at 50%, whereas your peak units is showing you how the resource is currently assigned to a task. So, and let me just go through a few more slides to make this, to help you bring this in to help you understand this a little bit better, because it is a little bit confusing. Peak units was introduced in 2010, and at first it was a little bit hard to understand what they were trying to, the reason behind it. All right, but I'll demonstrate it for you in the tool, actually, so you can see it in action. All right, so maximum units, again, this is shown as a percentage. This is entered in the enterprise resource pool. You're not going to be able to adjust this, and I'll just demonstrate that for you in a moment. All right, but here's an example. Sally's in your system at 100%, and she has, so that means she's going to be working on something 8 hours a day. All right, so if she gets an 8-hour task, she should be able to do it in 1 day. But John's calendar, he's actually entered into your system at 50%. All right, so he's only available to work on projects then 4 hours a day. All right, so if you assign him to an 8-hour task, the duration for that task is going to be 2 days and not 1 day. All right, but this again, the maximum units is done at the enterprise level. All right, assignment units is how you, as a project manager, assign resources initially to work on specific tasks. Again, this is a percentage, just like we see in the maximum units. This is not recalculated by project, and it can only be changed if you manually adjust it. All right, and I'll show this to you in a second. And peak units, again, it's shown as a percentage just like the other two, but it also is letting you know how a resource is currently scheduled to work. So let me go ahead and let me get out of my presentation mode here and move this over. It'll let me drag. There we go. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so I have a project open here, and I'll give you a moment to catch up with me because I know there's a little bit of a lag sometimes. If I go to a resource sheet view to see the resources in this particular project that I have open, I can see myself here. Oh, do not disturb because I'm currently speaking. All right, so you'll see here the maximum units. Again, this is being pulled from the enterprise resource pool. So when I enter the resource add them to my team, however they're entered in the enterprise resource pool is going to reflect here. So if I go ahead and try and adjust myself here for the entire project, because that's what I'm doing. If I say that I'm 50% allocated, that means every task in this project plan will only allocate me at 50%. But let's see, I've been messing with this project, so let's see if I can do it without getting prompted. Oh, I didn't get prompted. I should have closed my project and reopened it. What will happen is you'll get an error, it's not an error message, but you get a dialog box that pops up and tells you that these edits will not be saved. They are temporary. They are just for modeling purposes. So in other words, I could even publish this project and reopen it, and this will go back to 100% because this is set at the enterprise level. All right, so let me just undo what I just did. All right, and then, but what I can do is I can adjust my allocation at the task level if I wanted to. And in order to do that, let me show you from my Gantt chart view. If I click on one of these tasks here in my project plan, I do have what's called a split view details page open. So if you're not familiar with that, from the view tab over here, go ahead and you can see in the split view box that there is a details checkbox here. That will open up this bottom portion. It'll put the view it'll split the view, so I get two views in one page here. All right, and also just to let you know, I'm going to show you our upcoming events as well. I'm going to speak to that. I'm actually going to point some things out while we're talking, but if you find that some of the things that I'm talking about you're just not familiar with at all, or you just don't really know where these things are hidden in project, we do have a one-day class coming up. As you know, our webinars are every other week, except for next week. We're actually having one next Wednesday. So we changed the schedule a little bit to accommodate Thanksgiving. What I want you to know, though, is that we do have a one-day fundamentals class for project, all right, just for project. And it is a full-day class, and there is a cost associated with that because it is a full-day class as opposed to a one-hour webinar. But if you're struggling to keep up with any of this, please join our fundamentals class so that you can maybe get up to speed a little bit better. This is a very robust tool, so don't be afraid to admit that you're not sure about some of these things that I'll be discussing in this webinar today. All right, but it could it could definitely benefit you to join that class if you can. And off the top of my head, I want to say it's November 20th, but I will confirm the date for you in just a moment. Okay, so getting back to what I was talking about here, let me deselect that for 1 second. Let me go to task usage view because I've already manipulated this view here. I want to show you, I inserted a peak column here just to show you, and I'm going to then select my details, all right? The units down here represent how I was initially assigned to work on this task. So the units down here are 50%. So it's telling me that as a project manager, I may have adjusted this, or maybe I came in, no, we just saw on the resource sheet that I was 100%. So I adjusted this to reflect 50% here at the task level. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and, for this particular task, I'm going to make this a fixed duration example, just so I can show you peak units and how these things change here. All right. So again, my units is showing 50% because when I assigned myself to this task, I said I was really only available to work on this task at 50%. So what happens if I have a fixed duration task type? That means that this task is only going to take 6 days to complete, no matter how much work I add on to this. The duration is locked, all right? So I'm just going to go ahead and show that I'm just doing this just to demonstrate units and peak units so that maybe you understand a little bit better. I went ahead and added more work to this. I think there was 24 hours of work on this. I went ahead and upped it to 35 hours. Remember that I still only have 6 days to do this 35 hours because I'm saying the duration is fixed. And if I go ahead and click OK, I want you to pay attention to what happens here. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. All right, nothing, right? Nothing changed over here. So I know I'm doing 35 hours of work now in 6 days. And if I look over here on my usage view, I can see that I'm not working 4 hours per day. So something had to change. What changed was my peak units. Look here, all right, 73%. So remember what I said. The maximum units are what is assigned at the enterprise resource pool. The units that you see here, which is assignment units, is showing how I was originally assigned to the task in my project plan. My peak units will always show me how I am currently assigned to that task in my project plan. All right, so that's the difference between those 3 types of units. If you're not familiar with peak, that might have been a little bit confusing to you, but peak units is going to show how you're currently or truly assigned to work on the task at any given time. All right, and assignment units, again, doesn't change. That stays the same. It's representing how I was originally assigned to that task in my project plan. All right, so that is the difference between those units. Let me dragging some things around on my other page here. Okay, so let me go ahead and take you into Project Online to show you Resource Center. So let me click on these here. Okay, so you'll see here, I am actually in Project Online, and I can take you, let's go back and I'll show you where I navigated from originally. I click on either this or here to get to my home page. When you first initially log in to Project Online, it will look very similar to this, all right? This is an on-premise solution. Project Online will also have some Office 365 icons up here. Looks a little bit different, all right? But from here, I can very easily navigate to Resource Center. I was referencing Resource Center, and this is where you go to enter new resources into the enterprise resource pool. But as project managers, this is where you're going to go as well to see your resource allocation, all right? So when I click on resources, if you're new to 2013, you'll notice that once you're here, you're kind of wondering what you can do from within here. Your ribbon is collapsed by default, so if I click on the Resource tab or I click anywhere in the table down below, my ribbon will appear. All right, I just happen to have this view grouped by position role, which is the skill set here. We are calling it position role in our demo dev environment here. All right, so this makes it very easy for me as a project manager to come here and to see, all right, who are my accountants? Okay, maybe I need an accountant to assign to this particular project, and I want to see how these individuals are currently being assigned to all tasks across the enterprise so that I can make a decision on which one I want to choose for my project, who has the most availability. All right, in this case, I've done that. These are not the accountants. These happen to be product engineers. So I've already selected these resources. I have this little checkbox selected up top so that this list displays over here, making it easy for me to remember who I've selected. All right, so from here, now that I've selected my resources, I can see their resource assignments. All right, I can also see their availability, and I'm going to show you both of these screens. But my resource assignments, if I click on this, it's going to display those resources that I've selected. Now, if I forgot to select somebody, I need to go back to Resource Center and check the box next to their name in order to see that. All right, I am going to get rid of my quick launch navigation on the left-hand side so we can see more of this view. There's a little button over here on the top right that's called Focus on the Content. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And you'll see now I have a little bit more real estate on my screen here. Again, focus on the content, collapses or has your quick launch reappear, whichever you're trying to do here. All right. Okay, so now this is a time phase view that shows me planned work for my particular resource. It'll list every project that they're assigned to. All right, and then I also had product engineer selected, so I can see all those resources that I just selected in Resource Center, and I can see the projects that they're currently working on, the tasks that they've been selected, assigned to, the work, the remaining work, the percent complete. This is a configurable view, so you can add custom fields to this view if you need to, or remove fields that you don't think you're using. So I can either see it on the time phase grid in a planned view. I can also set this date range, or I could also see this in a Gantt chart view if I wanted to. So displays the information a little bit differently. Again, I see the projects here. Looks like I have some blank tasks in this one. Sorry. This is a dev environment, a playland sandbox that we test in, so who knows. But again, I see the resource, and then I can see the next resource and et cetera. I can collapse the outline and maybe just expand them one at a time. But the idea, again, is that this is not just my project. This is all the projects that Sean is currently assigned to. And it's going to tell me when they're scheduled to start, when they're finished, and the percent complete here. All right, so this is a great view to come and see how your resources are currently assigned to tasks in other projects. All right, so very helpful view for you, especially if you're trying to decide between more than one resource that has the same skill set. Let's see who has the most bench time, and then maybe use that resource. Let's see who's underutilized and use those before we go ahead and use someone that's already strained to their limits. I can navigate back to Resource Center to select additional resources or deselect maybe Aaron and choose somebody differently. I cannot do that from here. I'd have to navigate back to Resource Center. But I also can go to Resource Availability here. All right, so if I click on Resource Availability, this displays the information a little bit differently. What you see up here is the assignment work by resource, and I'll show you these different views as well. But you'll see in the legend, these are the resources that I selected. This just presents the information a little bit differently. Now I can see what the capacity line is here for the resources, and I've chosen these parameters already, and I've also chosen to look at it in units. You could break this down to look at it daily, weekly. However, however granular you want to get, you can change it here and then click on Apply. But I prefer to break it down by month. I want to see over the course of a month how my resources are being utilized, and I can see who has the most availability from here. All right. I also can scroll down. There is a nice table down here that will also display the name of the resource, the projects that they are currently assigned to, and then also availability and capacity, all right? This is his total availability for this month. His capacity is 184 hours for the month of July, but this particular project is going to use him for 60 hours in the month of July, so his availability for other projects is now reduced to 124. These are kind of hidden in here, and the reason being is that they are in alphabetical order, all right? They're not hard-coded to appear right underneath the actual name of the resource. You do have to kind of scroll through and see them in here. It is alphabetical. It also will tell me the utilization from, and you may notice that one says resource plan and one says project assignments. I do want to show you, let's see which one, this one. I don't remember which one of these tabs goes to which environment. I want to show you what a resource plan looks like. It's up here on the ribbon. I'm not going to actually create a resource plan. I'm going to speak to it, but this is how you would do it. What I did is I clicked on another tab that I have open. This is Project Center. All right, if you're not familiar with Project Online or even Project Server, Project Center is a list of an area where you can see all the projects that are published in your environment that you have permission to see. In this particular case, I've highlighted one of my projects down here, and you can see how I can click on this command for a resource plan. What a resource plan does is it gives you the availability to plan how you're going to utilize a resource over a course of time. So resource plans are built very loosely upon an actual project plan. All right, so they are not concerned with project assignments. Resource plans can be built without even having a schedule. All right, so if I just have a project, I've named it, I've given it a start date, and I've saved and published it to my Project Online environment, I can then create a resource plan for that project without actually having a schedule built. The idea is that I can say, I need 2 developers, I need a project manager, and I need an analyst. And I need them for 60 hours in July, 60 hours in August, and then I'm done for this particular project. All right, of course, your projects will be more lengthy, so maybe you're utilizing them, you're planning your resource needs over the course of 6 months. All right, again, it doesn't care what the analyst is doing in your project plan, whether he has task A, B, and C, and how many hours are associated with that task. The resource plan is giving you the ability to reserve a skill set over a course of time, and you determine that time frame, and for either the hours that you need them. Now, this view will only display hours, but when you create a resource plan, you can actually create it based on what's called a full-time equivalent. So maybe you want to use a project manager for 20% of their time in the month of July, 20% in August, and maybe 50% in September when you're getting ready to wrap up and close your project. All right, so resource plans rest very loosely upon a project plan. They do not care about the assignments in the project plan. They give you the ability to forecast and reserve a skill set over a course of time. All right, so this is letting me know there's an actual project schedule, and this person has been assigned to tasks in the project, which actually is not true because this shows 0. But if they had task assignments in this actual project, you would see, 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours, whatever their actual task assignment is in the project. Or again, it can pull from a resource plan. So I can come down here and I can see these resources. Again, I've associated my resources with a skill set, so I know these are all product engineers, and I can see who has the most availability. All right, my availability is based upon my capacity and what projects and assignments are actually decrementing my capacity. All right, so this is a great view. All right, this is your resource availability view. Of course, anybody that's in these negative numbers here, you know, is overutilized. In this case, it's just the product engineer. It's a generic here. But if you have a named resource that is showing negative numbers, you know that guy's probably in trouble, and that's not someone you will want to choose or select for your next project. All right, so it gives you the ability to compare how each of these resources are currently being utilized in your environment. All right, so I could change this view. I can look at it by work by project, which is different. It's going to list all the projects over here, and if I scroll down, it'll list the name of the project and the resource that it's using. All right, so a different way to see that view. I also could see remaining availability, which I'll show you. Anything below this 0 line lets me know that these folks are overutilized, right? They have no availability, all right? They need help. The 0 is perfect, all right? If they are properly utilized, that means they have 0 remaining availability and they are not overutilized. This is getting pretty close to that 0 here, so that looks good. Anybody that is way above with the remaining availability has bench time. So you can select maybe Aaron or Irwin, looking at these colors and comparing them to the names over here. Those are the folks I'm going to select for these, all right? So these guys have more availability during this particular month. Stay away from this person. This, of course, is the generic right now. All right, but that's the idea behind these views here. Okay, so from within these views, I can then determine who I may want to select for my project. Let me jump back into my project really quickly, because what I want to show you too is how, even though the resource sheet is showing me, oops, I shouldn't have done that. Let me just undo what I just did. And let me deselect that and go to a resource sheet view. Even though these folks are coming in at 100%, as a project manager, I need to take a look at this. For effective resource management, do I really want my resources assigned to tasks at 100%? No. And that's because nobody is heads down working on just your project 8 hours a day. Even if they are only working on your project and they're not assigned to any other projects, there's administrative work that they're doing. They're answering emails, they're going to a webinar like right now. Maybe they're attending a training class or weekly meetings, etc. As a project manager, you should be taking that into account and adjusting this. Now again, if I adjust it here, it's going to prompt me that that's not going to save, because this is an enterprise field that I'm trying to adjust. However, if I go back to my Gantt chart view, where I just and select that details button, I could, if I wanted to, change my assignment units here, all right? So I could change it here if I needed to adjust it to 50% as I've done, so that I am not going to be working on this 8 hours a day. Because if I'm assigned to work on a task for 8 hours a day, the chances of me staying or not, my task not slipping and me staying on schedule are pretty slim, right? I'm going to start seeing some slippage in my project plan, all right? So I think that the best thing for you to do is to either adjust it here. If you use a split screen details view, you don't have to. You also could, if you wanted to, double click on the name of the task. And let's see, if I go to my resource tab, I could adjust the units from here if I wanted to. All right, so now I'm only assigned to this particular task at 50%. All right. And let me also show you, I mentioned cost resources. If I have a cost resource, this is where I can enter that information, all right? I could come in here and say I spent $500 on my airfare and click OK, and now that cost will be associated with this particular resource. Let me just navigate to a resource sheet view real quick. I can't type in cost information here on my resource sheet, so I do need to enter that when at the task level. So I double-clicked on the task name to enter that cost information. This is your task information dialog box in the resource tab. I could do that from here. I also could, on a resource tab or a resource ribbon, you'll see assign resources. When I'm assigning the resource to my task, I can also adjust the units here if I needed to, all right? So I can do it from within the assign resources dialog box, or I can do it in the task information dialog box. Whichever you're more comfortable with will be the way that you probably choose. But again, as a project manager, you do want to adjust the allocation level here within the project plan at the task level to represent reality, all right? No one's going to be spending 8 hours a day working on your projects. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead, we've identified some resources that might have some more availability, we've gone ahead and adjusted their allocation levels within the project plan, I want to point out some indicators, all right? There are some indicators that you can see here that are letting you know that these resources are over-allocated, all right? Anybody read tells me over-allocated. I could also, we saw on the resource sheet view, note the red resources, they are also over-allocated. So anybody that's read on a resource sheet view, any red indicators on a Gantt chart view, they're also present in a task usage view as well. You can see them here. Lets me know that they are over-allocated, all right? So a team planner view as well, if you're not familiar with that, that's one of the new default fields that was introduced in 2010 and here in 13 as well. Anybody in red is over-allocated, and the red bars let me know where the over-allocation, or red brackets, lets me know where the over-allocation occurs. Since this is an enterprise project, you can see there's other projects and commitments that's letting me know, yeah, Cindy isn't working on a task in my project right here, but there are other projects that she's working on that are causing her to be over-allocated in these particular time frames here. All right, so this is a team planner view. So pay attention to these indicators here, all right? And then one of the things that you could do, now that you note that which ones are over-allocated, you can perform leveling. I'm just going to do this real quickly. From a resource ribbon or tab, you'll see here that you have the option of leveling resources. What this does is it smooths out the work allocation. So it divides the work, it takes the areas where the resource is over-allocated and smooths it out so that it can more evenly distribute the workload. You do want to keep it on manual. If it's on automatic, that means project will automatically level your resources, and you might not want to do that. Because when you are leveling, you want to pay attention to your project finish date to see if the results of your leveling exercise are acceptable. If it pushes your project finish date out by 3 months, that might not be a viable option for you. All right, so again, you can level your entire project, or if I had highlighted tasks prior to opening this dialog box, I could just select a section or a period of time to level. There is a leveling order that I do want to point out to you. ID is just looking at the number. It goes through the numbers, you know, from beginning to end. Standard's going to take into more information. This is going to look at dependencies between tasks, constraints that you may have on tasks, and also the ID numbers as well. So it's going to look at that information before and just determine which tasks may not have constraints on them, etc. Priority standard, it takes it one step further. All right, priority is looking at the project priority and also the task priority. And then it'll look at constraints and dependencies, etc. If I'm ready to level, okay, just saves any changes that I made here. It doesn't level my project. I do have to click on level all. Let me cancel out of here real quick just to show you. And again, if you're not familiar with where to set these options, you should really consider that fundamentals class that's going to be coming up in just a few short weeks. You'll see here priority. This is for my project. 500 is right in the middle. It's 0 to 1,000. 1,000 being the highest priority. If I set my project priority to 1,000, that means this is a very important project. Do not level the resources within my project, within my assignments here in this project. And it'll skip this project. It'll go to a project that has a lower priority level. I also could set my task priority. All right, so if I go to General, you'll see here there's a priority level for tasks as well. So if I have super important tasks in my project and I don't want to level them, I can adjust my priority level within here too. All right, what project will do is it'll first look at the project's priority level, and then those with the highest priority get skipped, and those projects with the lower priority get leveled first. Okay. So now, let's go ahead and talk a little, we're going to talk about some of the reports in here, and then I'm going to show you some of the reports in Project Online. There is a new reporting tab, a new reporting ribbon that shows some great dashboard reports in here. There are two resource reports, over-allocated and resource overview. We'll just click on these. I've already been playing with these. These are not, this was not the color that it was originally. If I click on any of these charts, I can change the elements here and the style and the filtering. And you'll see here that I have a field list too. So I can select different filters over here. I can group it. I can change the information that I see here. And if I change the information in the chart, I may also want to change the label up top to rename it to reflect what is now being displayed here in this report. These reports are really easy to edit, as you can see. If I go to Resource Overview, it gives me resource stats, my work status, and some other information down here. If I like them, I can copying them, and then I paste them either into Excel, Word, anything that supports graphics. Or I can manage them, rename it, and then save it. All right, so I have the option of doing using these over and over again. Let me minimize this, and let me just show you a few of these. We have a few open already. In Project Online, there are 3 reports that you get out of the box. One is Project Overview Dashboard, another is Project Overview, and the third one is Resource Overview. These reports don't have a lot of content to them. There are actually no data. They don't point to any data sources either. You need to kind of manipulate them and change them. They also don't have any time frame surrounding them. So you're looking at assignment work and actual work for every resource. You need to probably modify these reports to get them to show, maybe I want to see this work, but I want to see it for the month of July. I want to see this for the month of August. I don't want to see their work combined for the past year. You know, I want to see it. I want to break it down into some sort of time parameter. All right, so this is just the resource overview report. And if I click on these, I do get a pivot chart, all right? So when the fields populate, of course, I can drag them down to the values or drag them around. Whoops, what did I just do? To filter them, all right? I also could just focus on one project at a time if I needed to as well, all right? So again, these reports, you're gonna wanna tweak them. There's not a lot to them when the OData Excel Services reports that you get out of the box. I do recommend, let me show you a couple of other ones in here. This is one that we've created. This is one that's just resource availability. You can see it shows you the work and the capacity. All right, let me see what else we have up here. We have this one here. This is another one. This one actually has a heat map, so resource managers can take a look and see. We can scroll down to where some of the red is. We've only updated information for myself and Rebecca. We actually created this one for a customer. So this one does show a heat map. I have the ability of choosing a specific skill, selecting a specific time period. So this does have some time parameters incorporated in this report. So there are different reports. Let's just see, that's the resource overview one. All right, so we do have a few different reports in here. All right, we can also see resource capacity. All right, so you see how these, you can modify those existing OData reports to give you a little bit more information, provide additional information in here. All right, and I know I'm going through the reports rather quickly, but there was a ton of content to cover. But let me go ahead and I'm going to display my web page real fast, just so you can see. You'll see here, getting started with Project Online reporting. We do have a reporting webinar on December 2nd. That is a free webinar, so please join us for that. That will cover how to point the reports to the OData connections, how to create a chart, how to pivot the information. So I think this will be a great webinar. So if you're excited about the reporting capabilities, go ahead and join us for that. This, again, is the one full-day class that we are offering, so you can please feel free to join us for this. Go ahead and register for that one. That is on November 20th. And now I am going to stop sharing so that I can properly see any other chat. Let's see if I see any other questions in here. I want to be able to answer them. All right. Feel free to go ahead and type in your questions for me here, and I'll be happy to answer them. I know I gave you quite a bit of information in a very short amount of time. Thank you, though, for joining us. I do appreciate that. If you have any questions, you could always send them to info@integent.com, and we'll answer those questions as well. So if you needed any additional information, or questions about maybe doing a demo. Maybe you joined us just to get an idea of what this was all about and you're interested in seeing more. We'd be happy to set that up for you. Again, please go ahead and check out the additional webinars and that one full-day fundamentals class so that register for those. I know a lot of you have been joining us every few weeks, and that's great. Keep coming back. We are going to be promoting some additional information, such as a what's new in Project 2016. So if you're really curious to see the new features that are being introduced, or you've read some of our blog posts on our website, join me for that one. Let me just see when that one is. That one will be on just December 16th. All right, so we have some webinars coming up. That'll also show you a sneak peek at 2016. Project Online 2016 is available now. Project Pro 2016 is also available. The on-premise solution will be available Q2 of next year. So in 2016, mid-year, you should be able to actually install Project Server on-premise if you're looking at an on-premise solution for 2016. All right, so let me just see. I don't think I see any questions in here. Let me just check it out. All right, I don't have any questions. That's a first, but okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Again, my name is Laura Crawford. I'm with Integent. I appreciate everyone joining us. Our next webinar is next Wednesday. We're not skipping a week due to, I believe, because of Thanksgiving. I know that one kind of snuck up on me. And that one is, I believe, portfolio analysis. Yes, so portfolio analysis we'll be covering next week. So if you're interested in seeing the portfolio analysis capabilities of Project Online, join us next Wednesday at noon. All right, I'll stay on for a few more minutes in case any questions come through, but otherwise, thank you, everybody. That really does conclude our webinar for today, and I appreciate you joining us, and please continue to come back. If you have any ideas for future webinars, go ahead and shoot us an email at info@integent.com. My email as well is laura.crawford@integent.com.